Let's move on here. Let's talk about a story that nobody knows, including me. I was unaware of this, but in 2005, you worked in an advisorship capacity for both TNA and Ring of Honor at the same time. Now, I would like you to tell everybody the details of this, and then we shall compare and contrast how each company, I guess, reacted to the suggestions that you gave.
Okay, and by work for, obviously, is a stretch. I was just asked by someone in each company to, hey, if you, and again, we'll start with TNA. It was when they first got on Spike. I think when they had the 1 hour on a Saturday evening. I was done with WWE and was friends with a few people there. And I was just asked, I think via email or instant message. It might have even been AOL direct message back in the day when that was big. I don't know. But, you know, if you've got the time to watch the show, I'd really appreciate any feedback you have, any help you can give us. We're just trying to make the show stronger and better. We'd really appreciate any feedback you can offer. I'm like, sure, no problem. It's like, I get the show, I'll watch it for sure. And so, again, I wasn't hired, I wasn't employed. And again, it was just one person specifically that was involved with the creative process and actually involved in a lot of processes in the company. And I said, sure, I will watch the show and I'll give you feedback every week. And in Ring of Honor, it was Gabe Sapolsky when he was booking. He basically asked me, he says, if I sent you DVDs of our shows, would you give me feedback? And he says from anything, whether it's production, lighting, booking, talent, matches, any feedback you can give so that we can help improve the product, I'd love to hear from you. I'm like, sure, send me some DVDs. So he started sending me DVDs, and I started watching TNA Impact on Spike. And again, I think it was the 1 hour Saturday show. And we'll start with Ring of Honor because it's always good to start with the best before we go to the other. Gabe wanted every bit of criticism there was. And those who know me and any students of mine that are listening here, they know I don't sugarcoat stuff. And again, you know that too, Brian, because I send you texts and call you a dumbass all the time.
Yes, you do.
I say it with love, though, Brian.
Oh, that's good to know. You don't add the smiley face with a little heart next to it. Maybe you could do that next time. I'd feel better. Okay,
I'll do that next time.
Thank you.
But anyway, again, he'd send me a bunch of DVDs, and I'd type up, maybe sometimes page, sometimes 2 or 3 pages, with all the different matches, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, on a whole bunch of stuff. And a lot of it very blunt, very point blank, and again, some positive, a lot of negative, because, again, I coach like I like to play. I don't need the pat on the back going, oh, this particular angle was nice, this headlock was good. I'm going to point out the things that need to be fixed so we can fix and make a product better. And Gabe's first response to the first one was, this is awesome, this is great. As much as you can do, I'd love to see it. Would you mind if I shared this with talent? I think it would be beneficial. And I said, no, absolutely. And there was one guys I commented on that I was not a big fan of. And I'm like, I would rather you just edit that out before you share it with talent. That was, ruder and not as productive on his front than he can improve on. If you could take that out, I'd appreciate it. So he did, and shared it with talent, and shared the email address with talent. And a ton of people in that locker room got back to me with, man, I really appreciate this is helpful. Any other information on any of my stuff, I would really appreciate it. And
can you tell us now, years later, who this guy was? It's been a decade.
Which guy?
That you didn't really like and told Gabe to edit it out?
Oh, it was Morishima, the Japanese guy, the heavier guy.
Ah, yeah.
Again, I don't remember what I said, but I wasn't a big fan, and it was more just if I was booking him, this would be more my approach rather, and it's like, that's not going to help him. He doesn't need to hear my opinion of him. Where if I was critiquing his work more, then it's something that he may or may not be able to use.
Well, you can certainly tell him now he's retired.
All right. Well, anyway, I wasn't a big fan of his Ring of Honor work. And to give you an idea, some of the guys that got back to me with, hey, I really appreciate this, if you can give me any feedback, some of the guys that I corresponded with, Tyler Black, who's doing quite well for himself, Jimmy Jacobs, who's doing quite well for himself, Kevin Steen, and I was really harsh on Kevin Steen. Chris Hero, who I was incredibly critical of because this was back when he had the Superman shirt and was doing a lot of comedy and shit. Claudio Castagnoli, and then Gabe, obviously, as a booker. And the biggest thing I want to point out, I am not taking any credit for where they are. I'm more illustrating those who want to take criticism and listen to criticism are the kind of people that are going to succeed because they are confident enough in their ability to listen to what someone has to say, maybe disregard some of it, maybe use some of it.
That's right. That's why I've done so well with your criticism.
Exactly. You're almost a competent radio host now.
That's right. All because of you.
Yes. But again, these were the guys that I talked to, and these were the guys that were, and again, Kevin Steen is an example too. I was really harsh on him. I don't remember the show, but there was somewhere he did a promo in the middle of the ring, and it's like his gear and everything was at its most tattered, and it's like I gave him a ton of criticism, and he was one of the first people to get back to me with, "Can you explain this a little bit more exactly what you mean?" and wanted to learn, and we became friends, even though my first comments of him.
What do you mean about your gear sucks?
Well, no, there was more comments than that. That's just the one that I can think of off the top of my head. And Chris Hero, too. I was very critical of Chris Hero. And, he may have been doing it on his own before he'd heard from me, but it's like he started focusing more on his build and got out of the shirt and got out of the comedy and started going with more of the serious stuff he did. And became awesome. And a lot of it was his hard work. Again, it's not like, I spoke to him and he's great now. He did the work. And even when, and this is the thing that's amazing too, because I'll get that from indie workers here that don't like criticism and don't want to hear my opinions of the matches. And when Chris and Claudio were the kings of wrestling, it's like they were so eager and wanted feedback and wanted opinions. And it's like they were already great, but they knew they weren't perfect. And it doesn't matter whether I have the perfect answer or I just have an answer. The more feedback you can take, the more consideration you make, the better you are. And I, gave feedback for a long time with all those guys. That was one of the reasons why I was willing to do that program with Chris Hero in Ring of Honor, was I so respected the fact that I basically called him a comedy joke that wasn't going to actually amount to a whole lot other than just being comedy stuff in the middle of the ring. You can do better. And he busted his ass and got really freaking great. So I went and did a program with him, put him over. So that was my experiences with Ring of Honor. And then the TNA experience.
Well, before you go to TNA, do you remember any of the other, because Kevin Owens, he's been the star of Raw for like 3 weeks now. He's just great. What were some of the problems that he was having in 2005 other than his gear, if you can remember any of them, that he needed to work on?
I think the majority of what I spoke to him about was presentation and carrying himself more. And again, he still has the gear that I'm not a fan of, but again, it's not holding him back at this point. But it was just, again, the biggest thing was just, to me, he looked like a fat kid wearing shorts and a T-shirt. And it's like you need to find a better way that, to me, for the majority of wrestlers and so forth, if you look too much like the fan sitting next to you, why am I buying a ticket to see you?
Thing that I don't like about the gear, and this is just me, is that when I worked on little tiny independent shows, that's what the wrestlers wore. Basketball shorts and a T-shirt with the sleeves cut out. And it was kind of like, that's not what I should see in WWE. Now, you've got money when you're in WWE to afford good gear. So why is it still a pair of Walmart basketball shorts and cutting the sleeves out of your own T-shirt with a pair of scissors? I mean, there's got to be something better than that, especially as a main eventer. Now, in Steen's case, dude's never going to have a great body. He's in much better shape now than when he was at his fattest. So it is an improvement in terms of his physique. But with the physique he's got right now, I don't know maybe what would be better. I guess maybe something like what Bully Ray was wearing, because he kind of was a heftier fella as well. I mean, I certainly don't want to see Kevin Steen in nothing but a pair of trunks. And tights probably aren't going to serve him well either. I don't know what the answer is for Kevin Steen, but I do not like the basketball shorts and sleeveless T-shirt look.
Yeah, I don't either, personally, for me. Now, obviously, the total package that is Kevin Steen right now, Kevin Owens, is very good. You know what I mean? He's excellent. Again, him and Cena right now is
he's a star. It doesn't matter, but still.
He's the favorite part of the show. But yeah, me in my own brain as a fan, I don't understand why someone would wrestle in a T-shirt. And even the shorts, you know, again, the MMA shorts that Brock wears, I'm cool with. But part of me, too, it's like, you're not supposed to wear baggy shirts because people can get caught in them.
At least Brock's MMA shorts look like they'd cost $60. Kevin Steen's shorts look like they'd cost $12.
Yeah, and maybe they have experimented. I don't know. But, like, I don't know where, again, you know, Vader was a hefty guy, but he wore tights.
He did wear tights.
But again, I have no idea what Kevin would look like in tights. I don't know if he's got thin legs, whether he's wearing the shorts for that, or whether it's maybe the look he has currently is the best look. I don't know. But a lot of it, too, was in the Ring of Honor days. It's like, you know, there was, you know, strings hanging off and they were really ratty. And I'm like, you look like a bum. Where, you know, that's why I was a big fan of the last Raw where he had they were obviously new shorts that had the silver in them and the shirt sort of matched. And it's like, okay, it is still shorts and a T-shirt, but it looks like you've got designed these are your shorts, these are your shirt, this is made for you. You're wearing the look because this is the look you want, not it's the look because it's all you can afford.
So TNA.
Yeah, TNA almost right from the beginning was, oh man, why do you have to be so negative? Oh man. And
I'm shocked.
Yeah, and the other one that I thought was extremely telling, there was a tag match. It was actually America's Most Wanted, and I think The Naturals, I believe. I could be wrong, because it was a long time ago. And from a tag team psychology standpoint, it was just atrocious. I think I wrote an entire page just on this match, pointing out how you could just change a few things, it would build better, and a psychology, and how this would mean better. And I actually sent it to, and he's not there anymore, so I can use his name. I also forwarded it to Terry Taylor, because I've always been friends with Terry Taylor. And I just, you know, curious what you think on this, Terry. And Terry was actually the agent on the match. And I didn't know that at the time. And it was something specific, the way they set up the hot tag, that was just astronomically stupid. And Terry got back to me and said, like, yeah, I pointed this all out to them before when they were laying the match out, and they said, yeah, we know it's wrong, but we want to do it anyway.
Wow.
And I just said to Terry, I'm like, why were they not fired? But it was a spot they come up with that they wanted to do, and their agent specifically told them this makes no sense, it's wrong. And they went, well, we know it's wrong, but we want to do it. And they did it. And I found out quite a while afterwards, and again, neither one of them worked there anymore either, but when I worked a 1PW show in England, Christopher Daniels and AJ were on the show. Actually, I worked them both in a tag. And they were sort of laughing and chuckling, and I said, what? It's like, oh, we're at the studio, the office, wherever the hell, or TV or whatever. And he says, the guy who I sent the email to came in and was like, oh man, I can't believe it. Lance is just always so negative. And they're like, well, what? He's like, well, look at this email. And he handed it to them, and they read it. And he says, yeah, but you realize he's right, don't you? And the response is, well, yeah, I know, but. And once I heard that, I'm like, why bother sending them anything if they know it's right, but they don't want to do anything about it, and they just complain that, oh, man, it's negative? They're never going to get any better. They didn't want to hear feedback. They didn't do anything with the feedback. They just complained about it. And it was, again, it didn't last too long because I realized they didn't want to hear anything because they didn't want to get better. And there was one specific angle, and I think the problem was it was his angle. There was AJ Styles, I think it just won a Pro Wrestling Illustrated award for something. And this was, I think, was when the show was on Saturday. And Shannon Moore, when he was the Prince of Punk or whatever he was, you know, ran in and stole his plaque, and AJ chased him. And throughout the show, they show him running around backstage, and AJ's chasing him.
It's right. 2 hours of running.
well, I think the show was still an hour then. It might have been 2, I don't remember. But when they went to the pay-per-view, at the beginning of the pay-per-view, they were still running. And I sent them another blunt email with, AJ Styles is a top valuable talent. I said, and him running after this guy to get his plaque back like a kid in grade school chasing the bully that took his hat makes him look like a complete freaking dork. You need to book him as an adult. No adult would go chasing his hat with this guy's running around, especially he was still running the next day. Like, are we supposed to believe that this has been a race going on for 24 hours? This is stupid. And the reaction I got, I'm like, oh, this was your angle, wasn't it? And it was like, yep. And I said, well, on the bright side, it could have been worse. 2 heels could have done it, and they could have played monkey in the middle with your top baby face. And that was rude, and that was, but it's the truth. AJ Styles is one of their top best guys, and you have him in an adolescent, childish, meaningless program. And again, working with Shannon Moore, great. I bet you the match was good. But it's like, you're chasing your lunch money, AJ? And it's very frustrating when they don't want to hear it. And I think part of it is, too, and again, this guy was on creative, and I like the guy. I still talk to him on occasion. But it was a case of the problem that happens when you have moderately competent people in a position. What is the thing they're most afraid of?
Losing their position?
Someone coming along that's actually really competent. So rather than pointing out all the things you could improve better, it's best just to keep those ahead of you thinking that what we're doing is fine. Because if you start pointing out that we have to change this, and this was a mistake, and this was a mistake, at some point someone might go, it's like, well, if you're making all these mistakes, why are we hiring you? Is my honest opinion. But it never seemed like they wanted to actually make a change. And first it's like, oh, we're finally on national TV, it's going to be great. Anything we can do to improve, we really love it. And almost from the first email with, well, you could do this differently, you could do this differently. And that tag team, again, it was like a page or 2 on it, but it was like detailed with, if you just change this, look how much more it would mean. If you did this, look how much better he would look. This would get both people over, and clearly laid out. And it was like, oh man, why so negative? Rather than, oh wow, this is great, this could really improve things. And with Ring of Honor, it was, man, this is really great, we'll try to implement some of this stuff. And it's frustrating when people don't want to improve or learn.
So at the end of the day, that relationship didn't last long, it doesn't sound like.
Not the sending feedback, because I got to learn very quickly that they didn't want to hear it. And it's like, well, why am I spending the time typing it up to send it in if you don't want to hear it? But I did Ring of Honor for a long time. Gabe would send me DVDs. I'm like, what do you think? Send me DVDs, and what do you think? And even after, I wasn't doing as much with Gabe, it's like I continued to do it with a lot of the guys there, just with, hey, I'd like to know what you think. It's like, all right.
Now, what about the... Go ahead.
As I was just saying, and again, I'm not saying that I know it all and all of my feedback was good, but the people in the industry that want to take advice and try to do things, or at least consider the advice, are the ones that are more apt to succeed.
So what about the story of you being offered a match in TNA?
No, I actually offered one.
Oh, you offered one. You offered...
Yeah, it was someone asked something on Twitter, would you ever be willing to do a match or something? And actually, I offered to do one once. I had forgotten all about it. I don't think anyone's heard me tell this story. It was when Christian had the NWA title, the TNA NWA World title. It was they were either going live or they were just going to 2 hours, but there was or they were moving to a new night. They were doing some kind of big special show. And Christian had the world title, and they had just done, I think it was still a month off or so, a month or 2 off, but they had just mentioned that there's going to be this big show. Christian's going to defend the world title on this show. It's going to be on TV. And they had just done a segment where they established that even though Christian was a Canadian, he wasn't part of Team Canada, because Team Canada was still there. And I had just sent an email to a couple people there and just offered, hey, if you're interested, rather than having Christian beat somebody who's already on your roster, because, you know, they were still building 2 pay-per-views then, and they're trying to keep people strong. It's like, if you were interested, it would be very easy, and you wouldn't even need me at the TV tapings building up to it, that if you continued the tension between Team Canada and Christian, you could lead to the point where Christian agrees to defend the world title on the show against any member of Team Canada. And at the end, the reveal, and this is where if you could bring me into TV if they wanted to, the last show before the big show, where Christian's squaring off and the Team Canada guys are in the aisle, I slide in the back, super kick Christian, and lay him out. And it's revealed, it's like, well, hey, you've got the history that I was a Team Canada member in WCW. You've got the history of Christian and I as a World Tag Team Champions in WWE. And I could be the hired gun of Team Canada to fight Christian on their, I don't know if it was their first live or their first 2 hours, some kind of big special show. And I'm like, I'll come in and put Christian over clean. And I said, that way you're not having to beat one of your guys on TV. And none of the people I contacted had any interest or got back to me.
How about that? They even got back to you?
Nope.
Huh. How about that?
And again, I don't remember what they did, and it might have been just as good, but again, I offered, and they didn't have interest.
Well, there you go. Must have still remembered those emails.
I hadn't even set a price. It's not like I was overpriced. I was going to, like, hey, I like working with Jay. What the hell?
Well, I guess...